Okay, so welcome back. So now we have covered, if you remember from the course syllabus, we were, if you, we said that towards the end of the course, so which actually we are kind of reaching towards the end of the course now. We have another, I think 3 more weeks, slightly around 3 weeks of material left. So here towards the end, as I said in the beginning, that we will focus on 2 other aspects. So in terms of the regular MSW management, we have covered the material that we wanted to cover. So there will still be some problems solving which will be done by the TAs. They are working on that, and they will, those videos will be up, and you will be able to see that. That will be especially will be useful for the ones useful for everyone, but especially the students who want to take the exam. For them it will be useful to go over those problems. So we will have those videos up there as well. But in terms of the MSW was the major focus of this course. So we covered MSW management from all the way from generation, transportation, different types of treatment system, disposal system, waste. We talked about waste to energy, we talked about composting, anaerobic digestion and all that, and then also waste management rules. Smart cities, Swachh Bharat mission, all those things we covered. Now this, for the remaining part of the course, we will look at 2 big topics, which is kind of very popular, very relevant from the Indian context. So today we will start from this video, we will start talking about construction and demolition waste management. In short form, we call it C&D waste management. So this C&D waste, which is construction and demolition, and I'll explain that to you as part of this particular video. So we'll focus on C&D waste, and then in the next few videos we'll do that, and then after that we'll go into electronic waste management, e-waste, which is also very popular and very relevant. We have a lot of e-waste issues in the country. Every one of us is using different types of electronic gadgets and contributing towards the production of electronic waste. Construction demolition, as the name suggests, construction. So we have a lot of boom in the country in terms of the different types of constructions going on, roads, infrastructure, buildings. You go to any big city now, you will see several high rises are being is being constructed. So when these constructions are done, a lot of waste is also produced. So how to manage that? What is that waste really is? What are the components of that waste? And can we recover material from that waste to be used as a construction material? So as part of this 2016 waste management rules that the government came up with, this is the first time the government had come up with a separate rule for construction and demolition waste, which is there in many countries in the world, but it was never there in India. So C&D waste was always a neglected area. C&D waste is considered mostly inert. Construction waste, as long as you keep it separate, you don't mix things with each other, it is actually very easy to recycle, can be managed easily. The problem comes in the demolition waste, and demolition as well as / you can call it disaster waste. When we say demolition means when you are building down the building. For some reason the building has gone bad, or you want to build a new building in that particular location. You cannot put more floors on that because the foundation was not done properly. It was designed only for a 2-storied or a 3-storied. It might be an old brick building, and you want to make now a big high rise there. So you need to go for those beam columns, may have to go for piling as well, depending on where you are for the foundation. So for example, in Kolkata, in Newtown, Rajarhat, most of those areas which is a lot of construction were happening, a lot of piling activities. So those of you who are civil engineers, you know what I'm talking about. These are the pile foundations. So you have lots of piles, and then on top of that you have this structures coming on. So the load is getting transferred through those piles to the subsurface, where you have like a rock bottom or something in there. So that's in terms of construction, things are much easier. In terms of demolition, if you are doing a controlled demolition, again you can control the things. You can because any building, if you look at, after the construction of the basic skeleton of the building, we have the electrical fittings, we have AC nowadays, we have lots of other things coming into the building, and those AC has a lot of chemicals in there. Say God forbid if something happens, and right now, say if there is in the rainy season this year, we had so much Bombay had the issue, and there are a lot of problems are happening. So in those contests, if some building gets collapsed for some reason, and then when the building collapses, it's not only the brick and mortar and the concrete and steel, there is steel rebar. It has a lot of other things in it. It has the electrical fittings, and these electrical fittings may have some heavy metals, may have some other chemicals. We have you have like a refrigerator, sorry, it could be refrigerators as well in the houses, but then you have ACs have different types of chemicals. So all these gets mixed up. So this disaster debris, especially the disaster debris, it's very nasty material. It's not easy to handle those. So it's good that, but if done properly, if done properly, there is a chance of recovering a lot of good amount of material which can be used as a construction material. And as we are talking about housing for all, then housing for all requires a lot of construction material. And so if you have to build all this infrastructure, so we need a lot of construction material. So the goal of this MSW, goal of this C&D waste management rule is to how to promote use of this construction, use like a recovery of this material from this construction waste as well as the demolition waste and disaster waste, and use it back into the economy. So first, in this particular section, like a series of videos, few videos that will talk about C&D waste, let's look at the rule first, since the rule just came out and just like a year ago. So let's look at the rules. So we'll talk about the C&D waste management rules 2016. What is it? So in terms of, if you look at the components of the any waste management components, we have different things happening in terms of waste management, which we talked about that as well. And the newer concept of this is smart city is also coming in, where the smart city has a lot of other things like water management, energy management, but one of the important component of a smart city is also waste management, which we talked about earlier in this particular class as well, in this particular like a video, not in this video but some earlier video. But this C&D waste recycling as part of the waste management, construction and demolition is also getting popularity. So as part of this construction and demolition, you see a picture of C&D waste recycling plant, which is in Burari in Delhi. This is done by ILNFS. So this picture actually came from their website. And although like so you can, if you are in Delhi, you should try to go and visit this facility. I think this is the only this is at least the biggest C&D waste facility in the country, maybe the only one, unless if I'm wrong, correct me. But I think that's the only operating C&D waste recycling facility which is just working on C&D, just like a dedicated construction and demolition waste recycling facility in the country right now. So recycling and reduction of C&D waste, some of this construction and demolition, if you have some wood material, if you have certain material, you may want to use it for compost, but not that much. So it can be used, but not that much will be there. So what it can be used is you can use waste to energy and fuel. You can do the waste to energy, you can burn it and make some fuel out of that, and you can recycle. The thing is that you can recycle. You can do a lot of recycle of construction and demolition waste. And then you can, if you produce certain like a biochar and those kind of stuff with the different types of material out there, you can also try to do some wastewater treatment and those kind of stuff. But in general, the most predominant way of handling C&D waste is the recycling of C&D waste, and we'll talk about it specifically about that. So composition of C&D waste in terms of in India, not much data is out there. These are the couple of papers which you see. So this one is Bhattacharya et al., which is done at I think CBRI, with Central Building Research Institute, and I think it's same as our present Deputy Director of IIT Kharagpur. He was the author of this paper, Professor Sriman Bhattacharya. So he is the lead author, and there are other authors out there. So as you can see, in Indian context from 2013, and this is in 2015. So we see that nearly 65% is concrete, then 25% is brick and tiles, then wood, some metal, some others material, some plastic, 1% plastic, and then 2% some other material. Another study in 2015, which is since these categories are not the same, it's very difficult to kind of compare these two, but just if we look at some of the material, for example, brick and masonry over here, we found if we just take it off for a minute, we found around 25%. So around 25% was the brick and masonry in this study, and this gentleman found bricks and masonry is 31%, but here we call it bricks and tile. So, that is also not exactly the same. So, that is why the numbers are usually will not match that much. So, for metals metals actually 2%, here also it is around 2%. Plastic, do we have plastic separate here? No. Wood is there, wood is 2%, and here the wood was around 5%. So, again depends on place where how the construction and where the sample was collected, how the sample was collected. So, there will be some variability. For big picture it kind of looks more or less the same, but since the categories here is not the same as this. So, that is why many times we want a standardized. It is always better to have a standard protocol, isn't it? That is why I was trying to explain to you earlier in one of the video, that's if we have the standard protocol, so if we can use the same type of categories in each one of the study, then it is easier to compare. And it also depends on what you call tile, whether we calling the same thing styles in two different studies. And so those things are also sometimes gets into like a different kind of result. But in big picture, what is the concrete is a major component. We see a good amount of concrete, we see bricks, those are bricks, masonry, concrete. So, those are kind of major component that you will see in a composition of construction and demolition waste, which is not surprising. So, bricks and concrete, they can be recycled, they can be easily recycled in here. So, there are some facilities which are trying to do some processing, and there are so ILNFS, as I said, that is the biggest one, that is the recycling plant which they have. Then there is another projects which are coming up, which is it's like based on the field visits which was done I think early this year. We found out that in ILNFS in Burari, North Delhi, they have the 2000 tons capacity. Ahmedabad Environs Project Limited, so they are building a facility of around 300 tons of recycling facility there. Indore, they had again in pipeline, tenders were called in on 20th February. We don't know what happened after that, maybe it's already things are on pipeline, but this was around the time we had the site visit over there. So, it's around 100 tons, and then there are tenders are being called for developing a processing facilities in Udaipur and Visakhapatnam as well. So, Delhi basically led the pack, and this was much bigger facility, and it's already operational. I visited that I think last year, early 2016. So, it's almost a year and a half ago, and that facility was operational. But other facilities are also coming up, and as solid waste as the C&D waste management rules is focusing on C&D recycling, more and more facility will come up, and the government is promoting and more facilities for construction and demolition waste. See, if you remember from the waste to energy chapter, waste to energy module, or the set of videos there, one thing we talked about in waste to energy module is that this concrete, bricks, they are actually a nuisance at that waste to energy thermal treatment plant. So, if we can collect it separately. So, again going back to the basic, separation is the key, which we were talking about in this course, that either you do source separation or you do a separation at a facility. But if you can separate the garbage and keep the different fractions separate, and that really helps in terms of doing the management in a much proper way. So, you can if you have the C&D waste separate, we can do a C&D waste recycling facility. We can make a new material out of that and use it for construction and other purposes. So, the rule applies for every waste resulting from construction, remodeling, repair and demolition of any civil structure of individual or organization or authority which generates construction and demolition waste, such as building materials, debris, rubble. So, that is where the rule is applied. So, that is and then there are certain duties, as you have seen in the MSW management rules, the duties has been given. The waste generator shall be responsible for collection, segregation and all that, concrete, soil, other storage of C&D generated. Generator shall ensure that other waste does not get mixed up. So, this is very good, does not get mixed up with this waste and is stored and disposed separately. So, they do not want MSW to mix with this C&D material. That is really a good thing that this rule talks about. If that really gets done, that will really it will solve a problem on both sides. C&D waste can be recycled easily. MSW incinerators will not have that problem of big rubbles showing up on their on their conveyor belt, and if that goes into those that grates, they will damage the grates, and that will actually cost a lot of money to repair those grates as well. So, and then should keep the C&D waste within the premise, and then get the waste deposited at collection center or hand over to the authorized processing facility. Ensure that there is no littering or demotion of C&D waste, obstruction of traffic or public or drain. So, not drop it into the drain and all that, which was very common, that you can see the drain totally choked up by the construction waste coming from a particular construction work. So, they pay a certain relevant charge, again pay as you throw concept, you pay relevant charge for handling C&D waste as notified by the concerned authority. If you generate more than 20 tons or more than 20 tons or more in a day, or 300 tons per month, so you segregate the waste into 4 streams: concrete, soil, steel, wood and plastic. So, concrete, soil and steel, wood and plastic, and brick and mortar. So, that's then submit the waste management plan and get appropriate approval. Inform authorities regarding the activities at different stages of project. So, that's again typical, as you see in any rule document, those things are there. And then should develop a comprehensive. So, if you are a service provider and any contractors associated with that, they should have a comprehensive waste management plan covering the segregation, storage, collection, reuse, recycling, transportation, disposal of all construction waste, construction and demolition waste. Should remove all the C&D waste and clean the area every day if possible. Sometimes it may not be possible, because again C&D waste, as if you remember from the collection chapter, we talked about that these are the hall container system. We use the hall container, not the stationary container, because these are the bulky material. So, if you have a big container, you are dropping C&D waste, it may not get filled up in one day. So, it may take 4, 5, 6, 7 days to fill up. So, there is no point taking this empty container to the disposal site or to the recycling facility, because you are losing so much of money, energy, everything by transporting that. So, it is better let it fill up and then you transport. So, it may take few days to do it. So, that is why it says if possible then you do it. You do not have to do it, but if you try to do it every day if possible, you try to do it every day if possible. That is what it talks about here. Develop a storage and collection facility depending upon the duration of the work, the quality and type of waste generated. So, that is so that you can recycle it. In case the service provider has no logistic support, then he should tie up with the authorized agency. So, and the authorized agencies also need to come up to who can help in terms of implementation. Then we have duties of local authorities, which will be the ULBs. They should issue detailed directions with regard to proper management of C&D waste within its jurisdiction in the provisions of the rule. Local authorities should seek the detailed plan or undertaking from the generator, chalk out stages, methodology and equipment, material involved. They should seek assistance from concerned authorities, safe disposal of C&D waste contaminated with industrial, hazardous or toxic material or nuclear waste if it is there. So, those are like a typical responsibility to make sure the C&D waste is managed properly. Make arrangement for collection, transport, processing, give appropriate incentive to generator by the salvage process or recycle. They should examine, send the waste management plan within one period of date of approval of the building plan, whichever is earlier. So, with the with the building plan, you should also have a C&D waste management plan. You should have a construction waste management plan with the building plan, which is out there. So, these are all kind of typical regulatory language, and for all this we require a lot of capacity building of the ULB itself. So, the ULBs needs to be really they should understand what we are talking about here. So, they should be able to they should be able to help. If they don't themselves know, they will not be able to help. So, basically ULBs needs a lot of training programs in terms of construction and demolition waste, what it is, what are the ways it can be managed, what are the environmental implications of which we will talk about. So, when you try to go for this beneficial reuse of construction and demolition waste, there is always chances of that you will contaminate something. You may lead to, say, if you use a construction and demolition waste material, especially disaster waste material for road construction, there may be some heavy metals there which may leach off, and it will go and contaminate your surface water to the pond, lakes nearby. So you need to be really careful in terms of make sure that there is nothing harmful substances in there. For that, there are already protocols, there are global standards. So we need to basically understand those standards and use it properly in Indian context, not like in blanket, but we should try to use it in the Indian context. So they should examine, and all those we talked about. They should keep track of generation of C&D waste, establish a database and update once a year. Then they should try to have, they should take measures in consultation with expert institutions for developing a sustained system of information, education, management. That's what I was talking about. And then people like institution as ours can always help. So there are resources available, and in fact there are resources available within the country who understands it. The thing is that the correct people should be there at the correct place. That's where it's so that correct type of information, good information gets transferred. So that the data should be disseminated through their own website, incentives should be provided. So those things, by utilizing products developed on C&D waste, so those things are out there. So that's on the urban local body. Then you have duties of a state pollution control board. Similarly, as you can, they should monitor, implement these rules. SPCB should grant the authorization for C&D waste processing facility, should prepare annual reports. So those on 31st of each financial year, they have to give it to the CPCB. So those things are done for that. Then there are duties of a state government. So secretary in charge of the state government or union territory shall prepare the policy document with respect to management. The concerned department will deal with the responsible for suitable site development, setting up the storage processing facilities. So those is very similar to what you saw in the MSW management rules. Then you have the town and country planning department. So that will do, they will say the approved, they'll incorporate the site in the approved land use. So there is no disturbance on the future use of that facility. Procurement of material, procure of material made from C&D waste shall be made mandatory to a certain percentage in municipal and government contract, subject to strict quality control. That also we need to look at. Say if you are trying to recycle construction waste or demolition waste, there are two things we need to look at. One is of course the structural. Say if you want to for construction, as a construction engineer, if you are a civil engineer or any engineer or even any scientist, say if you are using a material, the material has to do certain function. And if the virgin material, like the new material, has certain properties, now we have this recycled material, they should also have the similar properties. Otherwise, it cannot compete with the virgin material, and your design specification will like you need to look at it has to meet whatever is the material specification. So what in terms of material quality that you require for that particular construction. So that's one aspect. So that's the structural aspect, and the other aspect is on the environmental side. Is there anything in this recycled aggregate or recycled material which I'm using as a construction material? Is there anything present which could be environmentally harmful? We need to know that. If it's there, can we contain it? What sort of treatment we need to require? And so we need to do that. That's called the beneficial reuse risk assessment. Beneficial reuse risk assessment of waste material, and there is a very standard protocol for that. And I myself has done some projects on that when I was abroad. So it's and recently we have a student right now, a MTech student, who is working on something similar, where we are looking at potential use of certain industrial waste. It's not a construction waste, but if you use of certain industrial waste as a substitute for material for certain construction, making bricks and those kind of stuff. And is there any environmental harm? There is no environmental harm. Great. Say negative information is also information. Say many times people say that, oh, we did the leaching test, we didn't find anything. They tend to convey the message that we wasted the time. No. It's if you did some leaching test, you didn't find anything, that's very good. That's a piece of information that this is not harmful. So it doesn't leach out, or it leaches out at a very low concentration. Great, we can use this material as a construction material, but that doesn't mean that every time you need to have some sensation information, like can have a breaking news on TV. That doesn't happen. Many of those breaking news are actually not breaking news. So anyway, and then there are duties of the Central Pollution Control Board, where Central Pollution Control Board should prepare operational guidelines related to the environmental management, analyze the data provided by SPCB, and they also coordinate with all the State Pollution Control Board and any matter related to development of environmental standard. So, if you look at the beneficial reuse standard, that is what we need. We need a development of environmental standard for recycled construction, recycled waste material. So, that is essentially the same thing that I was talking about, the beneficial reuse risk assessment, beneficial reuse standard. So, we do need a standard in the country in terms of having for environmental standard for that. And they should forward annual compliance record to the central government, and each financial year based on reports given by State Pollution Control Board. So, that is then there are Bureau of Indian Standard or Indian Road Congress. Since many of this construction material is partially supposed to go in a road construction or those kind of construction, so they are responsible preparation of code of practice standard for recycled material and products of construction and demolition waste in respect to construction activity. The role of Indian Road Congress will be specific to the practice for the construction of roads. So, both Bureau of Indian Standard and the Indian Road Congress, they are kind of needed for those construction waste recycling, like what kind of rules or the standards or practices needs to be there. Duty of central government, Ministry of Urban Development, Rural Development, Panchayati Raj, they will be responsible for facilitating the local bodies, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change for reviewing implementation of these rules as and when needed. So, then there are accident reporting, very similar to the MSW management rules. If there is any accident, you have to report date and time of accident, effect of the accident. It's basically to make sure the accident doesn't happen again. At a construction site as well as the demolition site, as well as during the, this is mostly looking at accident at a construction and demolition recycling facility. This accident is not the accident we are talking about, accident happening at a construction site as a activity for construction. This we are looking at C&D waste processing facility or C&D waste recycling facility, any accident at that particular facility. So, it is not a construction site, it is basically a waste treatment site, C&D waste treatment sites that we are talking about. Then there are other information, how to do the site selection for storage and processing of these recycling facilities, application of materials made from construction and demolition waste, time frame for planning and implementation. So, they have given certain time frame that you have to make the policy, city with more than 1 million, 0.5 to 1 million, less than 0.1 million. Formulation of policy is the same, identification of site is also the same. Commissioning and implementation is also pretty much the same, but monitoring by SPCB is actually goes down when it is less than 1 lakh. If it is more than 1 million, 10 lakhs, it is 3 times a year, for others it is 2 times a year. So, there are different forms, application for obtaining authorization, issue of authorization, annual report to the State Pollution Control Board by local authority to SPCB, and this is then form 4 is from SPCB to CPCB, form 5 is for the accident reporting. So, that is basically the big picture overview of construction and demolition waste management rules. So, I would encourage you to look at that rule. That rule, if you go on Google, you should be able to download it. Not, I think it's much thinner version of what is there in MSW management rules. Just flip through the pages, we already and then listen to this video. So, if you have already if you have gone through the video, look at the rules again and come back to the video one more time to revise, and that will help you to understand the rules. And if any further questions you have, feel free to put it on the discussion board, and we will be happy to answer it from there. And with that, I think we should close this particular module, and then we will go into more basic of like what is C&D waste and all those kind of stuff. And then I'll show you some examples, some different project examples related to C&D waste recycling. Okay, so with that, thank you, best of luck, keep working hard, and those of you who have registered for exam, start preparing for your exam. It will not be difficult, as if you have gone through all the videos carefully, if you have done all the assignments fine, you will be fine. Thank you.